I try not to buy into any of those campfire tales as they usually hold no weight to them. Sure, they're good for a good scare, but not much else. This happened a few weeks ago, and although it's being looked into, I don't think anyone could or would try to believe me. Most places I tried to share this story with just called me a troll looking for attention or some 12-year-old kid with too much of an imagination. Honestly, I would have thought the same thing, but the constant pictures, the police showing up at my door, showing in and out, coming through, I knew it was all too real. In the small town I'm in, things like this aren't very common, but seeing how we're not on the map, aside from our local news and police, not many of those sorts of incidents would be reported on a larger scale. But I'm uploading this as kind of a digital thumbprint, as the police aren't the only ones sniffing around my house. Although I was never approached, I can't help but feel like I'm being watched by someone. This all started with my group of friends from high school. For the respect, I won't be using their actual names, obviously. Kyle, James, and I all decided to go camping to try and get away from the craziness of what's been happening lately in the world, and we thought it would be a good idea to get back to the basics, the root of life. We got all the proper materials and got ready to set out. Boring details aside, we got the fire started, and I remember just sitting there, staring at the flames that danced along the wood, burning brightly as it contrasted with the darkness of the forest. The smell of it was nostalgic, bringing me back to a time where things were still normal. Funny, I could still remember the jokes we were cracking back and forth to each other while we sat around enjoying the outdoors. I wish I was more aware of the things that would ever have to happen. Carl was the one to snap me out of my daydream, standing up and raising a can. To my best friends, no, more than that, to my family. Here, here. James spoke before taking another sip, tossing his empty can aside to the small pile that was building up. We were all a bit buzzed that night. Kyle shook his head and laughed. Look, I won't beat around the bush. With all that's happened, I really can't thank you guys enough. It's been a full year since, the accident, and quite honestly, if it wasn't for you guys and Dad, I don't think I could be here now as happy as I am. We let the moment sink in for a minute. Jesus, it really has been a year, huh? James spoke, breaking the silence. Before I could input anything to the conversation, James shushed me, raising a hand as, in the faint distance, we could hear what sounded like a police siren. We all looked at each other for a moment as it slowly got louder and closer. Do you think someone called the cops on us? I asked James, looking at him. Nah, dude, no one even lives out here. I double checked when I was looking for the spot. James said, looking towards the sound as well. As James and I were talking to each other, Kyle just stared, wide-eyed towards the dark of the forest. Kyle? I reached out for him, but he just sat there, unresponsive. Earth to Kyle. Come on, Kyle. Go on. James snapped his fingers in front of his face, trying to get him out of his trance. As the siren got closer and louder, Kyle got up and bolted deeper into the woods. He had got up and ran so fast, it took us a few seconds to realize what had just happened. Without a second thought, I ran into the woods after him. The panic settling in killed whatever buzz I had as I could hear James' voice slowly trailing away from me as I ran deeper into the forest. Kyle was never this athletic before. I'm not sure if he got tired or I was faster than him, but I managed to catch up and grab onto him, trying to calm him down. I remember he was thrashing in my arms like a scared child. Calm down, Kyle. It's me. Calm down. I raised my voice, finally getting him to calm down. He jerked away from me, tears streaming down his cheeks. You don't hear that? Kyle choking up as he looked towards the sound of the siren, which sounded closer than ever. I know that voice from anywhere. Kyle began to cry even harder. That's my mom's voice. I know it is. She's crying out for help, and you're here trying to stop me. Kyle pushed me before slowly walking further into the woods. But what Kyle said made no sense. I couldn't hear any voice aside from his, mine, and James, let alone his own mother. The only thing I could hear besides that was the siren. I could hear Kyle shouting into the darkness as he didn't get much further than where I was. Kyle, you aren't making any sense. There isn't anyone out here except for us, and quite honestly, we need to get back to the campsite. Just then, the siren suddenly got silent, and the only thing I could hear is Kyle's whimpering as he frantically called out for his mother. Kyle? It's impossible that your mom was out here. I know you miss her, we all do, but I really think you're hearing things. She's not here. You know that as well as I do. I was trying not to strike too heavy of a nerve, but judging by the way that Kyle was acting, I could tell he was already mentally gone. I know she's here. I heard her. I know she... Kyle was suddenly quiet. Hooked over at him as my eyes widened. I could see his feet lifting from the ground as he was slowly being picked up by what I at first thought it was a tree. I could hear struggling noises as I frantically flipped on my flashlight on my phone to get a better look. It had impaled Kyle. Its branch-like fingers had impaled Kyle as his blood was spurting along the tree line that caked the ground and even got on me. I could hear Kyle gurgle in pain as he reached out for me. I stood frozen in fear as I watched my best friend for years get torn completely in half by this creature's branch-like limbs. Lifting the top half of him over its tall body, I can make out what seemed to be sirens at the top of what I would call its head. Flesh-like gums and teeth protruding from its many mouths attached to the pole that the sirens were hanging from. Kyle's top half was feeding this creature, its organs carefully dripping into its mouth as it didn't even chew, it swallowed them whole. Kyle's bottom half of his body was thrown against a tree like a torn rag doll. After finishing its meal, what was left of Kyle had been dropped to the ground, nearly hollowed from the missing organs. The creature began to extend its long fingers out towards me. A chill shivered down my spine as I could hear Kyle's voice, slightly distorted, coming from its sirens. Come here, Jonathan. My fight or flight senses kicked in. I turned and ran. I felt my heart and my chest as hard as each step I made towards the campsite. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? Was the only thing I could force out of my mouth as I kept running. The creature high on my heels as it had little trouble keeping up with me. I somehow managed to get back to the campsite, the creature being hindered by the trees and nowhere to be seen. I feared the worst as I didn't see James at the campsite. I thought the creature had got to him too. As I continued to the street where we had gotten to the site of the camp, I lost all hope. That is, until I heard the blaring horn of a familiar car being blown in my direction. I could see James behind the wheel yelling, "Get in now!" I didn't think twice. I quickly scrambled into the car as he turned and quickly peeled off, going towards the direction of the town. I turned and looked through the back of the window to notice the creature looking our direction. But it wasn't giving chase. Kyle's voice coming from the creature, taunting me. As we sped off, I didn't even realize I was crying until I felt the tears dripping onto my arms. I looked over at James as we left. That fucking thing killed Kyle. Tears now clouding my vision as James didn't even look at me. I know. I saw it too. James said as we kept driving. We can't tell the police what we saw. James continued. What do you mean we can't tell the police? James didn't even look at me, just continued to drive. If we told anyone what we saw, we're both going to prison. No one would be able to believe us. We were attacked by a bear in our sleep. Kyle managed to lure it away and told us to get somewhere safe. He never came back, okay? I couldn't believe it was coming out of his mouth. He slammed his foot on the brakes, turned at me and yelled, "Okay!" I shook my head, just wanted to go home. Okay. I said with a heavy sigh. Either RPD was dumb as hell, or James is a very convincing liar. Because not only did they buy the story, the way that Kyle was murdered, no way a human could have done that. So as far as James and I were concerned, we were off the hook. Regardless to say we don't talk much anymore. He and I weren't worried about one snitching on the other. We both knew the truth, and not being able to save Kyle was punishment enough. So that's what happened. Every time I thought myself to have just had a nightmare or a bad dream, or I just imagined that I would look for a picture of Kyle on any social media and find dozens of pictures of him, of us, all three of us. And I can't help but go back to that horrible night. And sometimes at night I can still hear him, what I think is him, calling out to me. Come here, Jonathan. Telling me to come to him. What's worse, recently, I think I could hear James' voice too.